Good evening. We'll go ahead and call the September 9th Board of Zoning Appeals to order. Ms. Parker will read the opening statement.
We would like to welcome all present to the meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals. Mr. Jeff Carson is serving as chairman this evening. The format for this meeting is as follows. As each application is called, we would ask that all those both for and against to please come to the front of the room. The applicant will make the opening statement explaining the proposal. Please note that the applicant will be given 15 minutes to present their case. The 15 minutes includes the applicant and any consultants and other members of the applicant's team. Members of the board will then address any questions they may have to the applicant. Any persons wishing to speak in favor will be allowed to do so at that time. Then those persons in opposition will be allowed to make their statements and ask questions. Please note that each member of the public who wishes to speak, either for or against the application, will be given 5 minutes to express their opinions. Time may not be shared between speakers. A speaker at the podium may request to extend their time, and the board may, by 2/3 majority vote, extend any speaker's time in 5-minute increments. The applicant will then answer questions and make a closing statement. All statements at the meeting shall be directed to the board, and cross-conversation among those in attendance is prohibited. Questions between opposing parties shall be directed first to the chairman, who may then ask the proper person to answer, such answer being directed to the board. The public hearing portion of the meeting will be closed, and the public will only be allowed to address the board if a question is directed to them. The staff will then make their comments and recommendation. The board will discuss the application and make their decision. A brief statement of the reason for the motion will precede the making of the motion. Motions to approve shall include the staff stipulations unless otherwise stated in the motion. Also, all items or exhibits submitted and/or shown either to the board or staff during these proceedings shall become part of the official record. The board is required to disclose contacts with regard to any item on the agenda. Before each item, I will ask if any contacts have been made, and members of the board will be asked to disclose those contacts at that time. We ask that anyone with a cell phone to please turn them off or switch to non-audio so you will not disturb the meeting. Our first item on the agenda tonight is Appeal Number 2340, Lloyd Clay, for property at 7852 Leavenworth Road. Does any member of the board have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
All those for and against, please come to the front of the room.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thomas Steibel, 509 Armstrong, Kansas City, Kansas, representing the applicant Lloyd Clay, and also here today is his son Curtis Clay. This is a property that had an accessory building that had an addition built to it without a permit, approximately 220 square feet. There was also Mr. Clay then did pour a concrete slab that does not require a permit that also exceeded the statutory or the ordinance limitations. They did so without actually having knowledge of what the limitations were in the zoning ordinances. I think it's important to understand the size of this lot. It's a 1.1 acre lot. So that the building, the accessory building now takes up about 3% of the size of the lot, and the same is true with the concrete slab. The lot's very unique. Besides it being large, it has a 300 by 12 foot commercially zoned driveway that drives back to the lot. You can see it up there. It runs between those two commercial buildings. And then the back part of the lot is actually zoned residential, so it's a lot that is zoned both commercial and residential, which is a very unusual circumstance, I would say, in the city of Kansas City, Kansas. This, there was an allegation, I believe it was in April, that there was commercial activity taking place. The applicant cooperated with the inspector. They then came and sought counsel, and we advised them that they could not engage in any of that kind of activity on the lot, and that we would have to get a zoning variance in order for the building and the concrete slab to not have to be deconstructed. They have indicated to me that all they wanted to do is comply. They have a history of compliance. They pay their taxes. There was no history that I could find of them having any other issues with the local government. In the package that was provided to you were photos that I have taken they're on pages 17 to 25, and times that I have visited the lot, I provided those to the staff so that they could see that whatever commercial activity they were concerned about was the applicant had quit engaging in that behavior. And I would also point out that there was an email on page 29 from code enforcement that indicates that they were not aware of any commercial activity that had been taking place on the lot since we became involved and submitted this application. The applicant did not, Mr. Clay did not make this, did not undertake these improvements in an effort to operate a commercial activity. He just wanted access to a garage door that was on the side of the garage with an apron in front of it. Like I said, he did not know that he was exceeding the ordinance limit of 1,000 square feet. He really can't engage in a business. He has Parkinson's disease. It's a debilitating and progressive disease. That's why he had to retire from working in the first place. So the idea that he's going to be engaged in commercial activity there, I think, is not really realistic. We think that due to the lot size, the location, the dual zoning, the limited public view of the lot, the distance from Leavenworth Road, we believe that this is a lot that is unique to the city and that a variance could be granted without serving as a precedent to providing variances in what would be considered kind of a normal residential lot in the city. I don't want to be redundant with the information that's been provided to you in writing, so I'm going to end our presentation. We will be happy to answer questions that you all may have.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for the petitioner? Can you address the commercial activity that was going on in March prior to all of this
Well, I think
starting?
I think they had some cars parked there, and there may have been some activity working on those cars. But like I said, they have deceased, and they're not engaging in that activity. I don't know. I didn't represent them in March, so I'm not sure.
Well, then let's get somebody to the microphone that can answer the question.
Sure.
Those cars had belonged to my father. He wrecked his Volvo, and he probably, how many Porsches do you own? He owns 3 Porsches and had wrecked his Volvo, so he was repairing his Volvo on the property. He wrecked that just over the winter, and they did see car parts, body panels that were removed from his Volvo that is registered in his name on the property. But I think the real issue with the commercial activity was the salt and plow trucks. That was their
What about
biggest
the
gripe.
Volkswagen with the I guess the price on the front window?
That was my Volkswagen that I was storing there, that I removed the day that the police came and made their very initial complaint. You know, there was a price on the windshield, but it was not advertised for display. It was, you know, inside the gate of the property. And I was just storing it there. I have a business in Kansas City, Missouri, a dealership and automotive repair shop. I brought my business licenses.
Sir, could you give your name and address for the record, please?
Curtis Clay, 5415 Melrose Lane, Shawnee, Kansas, 66203.
So the comments regarding the parts delivery, that's not something that's going on at your property?
No, that is not. We did have many parts delivered for his Volvo. His car was in fact totaled, and I would say it was well over 6 months before it was back on the road again. and took dozens and dozens of parts.
And the comment regarding the multiple vehicle with different plates belonging to different owners?
Right, I'm not sure. I mean, that's,
I've got something from Codes Enforcement says that there were multiple vehicles that had plates belonging to different owners. They didn't belong to your father. They belonged to different people.
his girlfriend's car was there at the time when the police came. My car was there at the time the police came, and his tenant's car was there at the time that the police came. So that's what vehicles that were not in his name, they all belong to one of us.
Okay.
I think what the comment is that the cars had switch tags on them. The cars and the tags didn't go together. Is that correct?
I just said that there were multiple vehicles there with plates belonging to other people.
Okay, then I'm incorrect.
Questions for the petitioner? Yes. Commissioner Huey?
In the same photograph with the Volkswagen with the price tag on it, there's also a large dumpster. What's the purpose of the dumpster?
That is the neighbor's dumpster.
It's the neighbors?
Other questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll open up the public portion of the meeting. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak in favor of or in opposition to this request? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting. We'll get staff comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The difficulty here is that the variance is being requested are for improvements that have already been made. So the applicants created their own hardship by installing the improvements without proper permitting. It looks to me that the addition on the 220 square foot addition is a little shed addition on the side of the actual 1,000 square foot garage. And so the consequences of a denial here would be they'd have to probably remove that addition, and they would have to remove a small portion of the concrete parking area. So the state law is pretty clear in that you can't create your own hardship and receive a zoning variance, and so the staff is left with a recommendation of denial.
Questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll stand for a motion. Any questions or clarification for staff before we get a motion? Commissioner Serta?
It's more of a procedural question. Rob, was the SUP applied for concurrently with this, or was that a prior request?
It was either concurrent or 1 month. They preceded or followed each other by a month, but
Was that also
By 3
instigated by
months.
the code enforcement action?
that was so that they could properly obtain a business license for the snow plows and salt trucks.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we're open to a motion.
I move the Board of Zoning Appeals deny case 2340 is not in compliance with the city ordinances and other reasons listed by staff.
Okay, motion is for denial for the reason stated by the maker. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Huey. I'm sorry, the motion was made by Commissioner Ernst, seconded by Commissioner Huey. Discussion on the motion for denial. Seeing none, roll call.
Cho,
Aye.
Ernst,
Aye.
Huey,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Reasons,
Aye.
Serta.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to deny this appeal for the reasons outlined by the maker passes 7 in favor and none opposed.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that will take us now to our next appeal, which is Appeal 2343, Pedro Rocha, for property at 1128 South 47th Terrace. Does any member of the board have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
All those for and against, please come to the front of the room.
Good evening.
Good
Go ahead and
evening,
give us your
everyone.
name and address and tell us about your project.
Okay, my name is Pedro Rocha, and I live at 2718 South 49th Street. And we're here regarding my wife's new property. We're trying to get a garage, like store garage, exceeds the city's limit. And we have talked to all the neighbors and trying to have them be okay with us building this garage. We're not trying to do any, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm not very good
That's okay. What are you planning on using the garage for?
storage, especially our house that we just bought is really small. We don't have a garage. And we have 4 kids, so you can imagine there's bicycles and a lot of stuff that we have to storage there. And 2 cars.
Okay.
So that's the main part. We're not trying to go against the city, but it's something we already have bought, and we're gonna lose a lot of money if we don't go with it. The neighbors that were a little bit concerned because they thought it was gonna be like commercial, which is not. We had our meeting, and most of them, they were okay with it. Our garage gonna be built right behind our house, so not much people is gonna be able to see it. It's pretty far away from our street, from the main street. And we just trying to keep everything clean on our yard. Don't have nothing there.
Okay, but your garage has not been built yet,
No,
correct?
no.
Okay. Are there any questions for the petitioner? Okay, seeing none, we'll open up the public portion of the meeting. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak in favor of or in opposition to this request? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting. We'll get staff comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'd recommend approval, subject to the stipulations in the staff report.
Are there any questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll stand for a motion.
I move to approve, subject to the stipulations in the staff report.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Neal. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Cho?
Aye.
Ernst?
Aye.
Yui? Miller?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Reasons?
Aye.
Serta.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to approve this appeal, subject to the staff's comments and suggestions, passes 7 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you. Okay, your request was granted.
Thank you very much, all of you guys. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, our last item on the Board of Zoning Appeals agenda is Appeal Number 2344, Adam Whitmer with Whitmer Management LLC for property at 548 Central Avenue. Does any member of the board have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
All those for and against, please come to the front of the room.
Good evening.
Evening. My name is Chris O'Connor. I'm with WSKF Architects. We were hired by Mr. Whitmer to produce architectural plans for this project. The project, just to summarize it, there's an existing coffee shop there. Mr. Whitmer is looking to expand the seating area of the existing building. There's 2 existing buildings on the property. One is a storage building, and the other is the actual coffee shop. So there's a small addition onto the coffee shop itself with extra seating and some restrooms in it. And then there's also a kitchen expansion of about 9 feet on the back of the building. There is also an expansion of the storage building with more storage, which would also contain some restrooms in there. Another unique feature of this project is on top of both of the additions that I was speaking of, there will be roof decks where people can have their coffee up on the roof deck.
Are there any questions for the petitioner? Okay, seeing none, we'll open up the public portion of the meeting. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to speak in favor of or in opposition to the request? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting. We'll get staff comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just note that if you look on the map here, you see the site where the coffee shop is, and then directly south of that, you see another parking lot. Mr. Whitmer, for his properties here, has built 33, 34, 35 parking places between the two sites to accommodate his businesses. I think this expansion is acceptable within the realm of the parking already provided.
Questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll stand for a motion.
Move to approve, subject to the stipulations in the staff report.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Neal. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Cho,
Aye.
Ernst,
Aye.
Yui,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Reasons,
Aye.
Serta.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to approve this appeal, subject to the staff's comments and suggestions, passes 7 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you. So that will conclude our agenda for the Board of Zoning Appeals. We will convene the City Planning Commission meeting in about 7 minutes. Thank you. Good evening. We'll go ahead and call the City Planning Commission meeting for September 9th to order. Ms. Parker will read the opening statement.
We would like to welcome all present to the meeting of the City Planning Commission. Mr. Jeff Carson is serving as chairman this evening. The Planning Commission is a voluntary body of citizens which will review each zoning proposal. For all change of zones, special use permits, vacations, and preliminary plan reviews on tonight's agenda, the Planning Commission makes recommendations to the Unified Government Board of Commissioners, who will then make the final decisions on Thursday, September 26, 2019. For final plats and final plan reviews heard tonight, the Planning Commission's decision is final and there will not be another hearing. The format for this evening's meeting is as follows. As each application is called, we would ask that all those both for and against to please come to the front of the room. The applicant will make the opening statement explaining the proposal. Please note that the applicant will be given 15 minutes to present their case. The 15 minutes includes the applicant, consultants, and other members of the applicant's team. Members of the Planning Commission will then address any questions they may have to the applicant. Any persons wishing to speak in favor will be allowed to do so at that time. Then those persons in opposition will be allowed to make their statements and ask questions. Please note that each member of the public who wishes to speak will be given 5 minutes to express their opinions. Time may not be shared between speakers. A speaker at the podium may request to extend their time, and the Planning Commission may, by 2/3 majority vote, extend any speaker's time in 5-minute increments. The applicant will then answer questions and make a closing statement. The public hearing portion of the meeting will then be closed, and the public will only be allowed to address the commission if a question is directed to them. The Planning Commission will discuss the application and make their recommendation. Also, all items or exhibits submitted and/or shown either to the Planning Commission or staff during the hearing will be retained to become part of the official record of these proceedings. If persons in opposition want to formally protest a change of zone or special use permit, a means is available by a legal protest petition, which can be obtained along with the necessary instructions by calling the Urban Planning and Land Use Department at 573-5750 tomorrow morning. Any application receiving a unanimous vote of recommendation by the Planning Commission will appear on the consent agenda of the Unified Government Board of Commissioners. Unless there is a request to remove an item from the consent agenda by the applicant, a member of the Unified Government Commission, or other interested parties, the Planning Commission's recommendation will be adopted. The consent agenda is heard at the beginning of the meeting at 7 p.m. If you are interested in an item, you should appear promptly on Thursday, September 26, 2019, at 7 p.m. to see what action is taken or to ask that it be removed from the consent agenda. The Planning Commission will also have a consent agenda as part of their meeting this evening. The consent agenda is the first part of the agenda, and items on the consent agenda are final plats, final plans, or special use permit renewals that have received a staff recommendation to approve. Unless there is a request to remove an item from the consent agenda by the applicant, a member of the staff, a member of the Planning Commission, or other interested parties, the staff recommendation on all of the items on the consent agenda will be adopted by the Planning Commission at one time. I will read a list of agenda items on the consent agenda, and when I have completed the list, the chairman will ask if there are any requests to remove items. This is your time to come to the microphone and request that an item be removed from the consent agenda if you do not agree with the staff recommendation. All items not removed from the consent agenda will be approved by the Planning Commission with the staff recommendation. The Planning Commission is required to disclose contacts about any item on the Planning Commission agenda. Before each item, I will ask if any contacts have been made, and members of the Commission will be asked to disclose those contacts at that time. We appreciate the attendance of those here this evening, and we recognize the seriousness of each case and each person's opinions. but would like to request that each side keep their comments as concise as possible. Your opinions will be forwarded to the governing body for their consideration in making a final decision. In addition, those who receive notices for this evening's hearing will again receive them for the hearing on Thursday, September 26, 2019. We ask that anyone with a cell phone to please turn them off or switch to non-audio so you will not disturb the meeting. I will now read the items on the consent agenda. Consideration of the August 12, 2019 City Planning Commission minutes. Special Use Permit Application SP 2019-95, Dan Spencer. Renewal of a special use permit at 3327 North 7th Street Traffic Way. And that is for the operation of a private firearm shooting range. The items I have just read are on the consent agenda. At this time, does any member of the commission wish to disclose any contact on any of the items?
No.
Please include the following items as part of the record for all of the items on the consent agenda: the city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated September 9, 2019, the application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, the notice in the ECHO, and the notices to property owners. The commission will vote in one vote to approve these items unless someone comes forward and asks that an item be removed from the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to have anything removed from the consent agenda for special consideration? Seeing none, going to the commission, is there anyone on the commission that would like to have anything removed from the consent agenda for consideration? Okay, seeing none, we'll stand for a motion on the consent agenda as presented.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Curtis, seconded by Commissioner Miller. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Cho?
Aye.
Conley? Aye. Ernst?
Aye.
Ewing?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Reasons?
Aye.
Serta.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to approve the items on the consent agenda with the staff's comments and suggestions passes. 8 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the special use permit will go before the Board of Commissioners on Thursday, September 26th at 7 p.m. The consent agenda is now completed and the commission will move on to the non-consent agenda. The commission will request that when an applicant hears their application being called, that they move forward to the microphone along with all those for and against in order to keep the meeting moving. We have 2 items that we're going to hear together. Change of zone application 3197, Gerald St. Peter. Change of zone from AG Agriculture District to R1 Single Family District for a single-family residential subdivision at 10525 Nelson Lane. And we'll hear the corresponding preliminary plat, Eagles Edge, for 55 single-family lots at the same address. Please include the following items as part of the record for this case: the city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated September 9, 2019, the application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, the notice in the Wyandotte Echo dated June 13, 2019, and the notices to property owners dated June 12, July 1, and August 5, 2019. Does any member of the commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this application?
No.
All those for and against, please come to the front of the room.
Good evening. Who's going to present?
I will.
Okay, go ahead and give us your name and address and tell us about your project.
Paul Moss with Land Plan Engineering, 1600 Genesee Street in Kansas City, Missouri. Representing Gerald St. Peters, the applicant, for the address there, 10525 Nelson Lane. Just presenting this property for change of zone, going from agricultural to residential for the single-family lots. Have it set up for 55 lots and with lots of green space, has an on-site pond, and also with the amenities needed for a path wandering through, as well as a picnic area for with benches and barbecue. Yeah, I think that's.
You want to tell us a little bit, something about the types of houses you're going to be building? Are they going to be,
They're single family, it's going to be contractor build. So they'll be as built as they're purchased individually.
are there any questions for the petitioner? Commissioner Serta?
There's a statement in the staff report or recommendation that there be a covenant recorded stipulating the design requirements per the Prairie Master Plan. Are you in agreement with that?
Yes, yeah, we'll have covenants recorded with development.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll open up the public portion of the meeting. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to speak in favor of this request? Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak in opposition? Okay, go ahead and come to the mic and give us your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Jared Groneman, 4049 Hutton Road. First off, I want to thank members of the City Planning Commission for your time. In the interest of time, in order to be concise, I've prepared written remarks. As I stated, my name is Jared Groneman. I'm a lifelong resident of Kansas City, Kansas, and currently in my third home in Wyandotte County. I've recently built a new home in Piper on a stretch located between Nelson Road and Donahue Roads in the area that is platted as Hutton Estates. I'm here representing myself and other directly impacted residents of Hutton Estates by the proposed development of 55 single-family residences by DAP LLC. I have a packet of photos for the committee's reference, if permitted.
You can go ahead and continue, and we'll get those going.
The newly proposed subdivision will be east of Hutton Road and south of Nelson Lane. The development will have significant impact to 3 of the existing homes on Hutton Estates, including my own. In the proposed development plan, out of the 55 single-family residences, there are 3 existing homes of Hutton Estates that will have property lines directly adjoining newly proposed lots. All other existing homes on Hutton Road will not have lots directly adjoining their property lines. I, along with other impacted homeowners, are requesting that the commission consider requiring DAP LLC to install and plant landscape screening buffer zone on the development side of the property line in accordance with City Ordinance, Chapter 27, Division 10, Landscape and Screening Purposes 1 and 4. According to the documented purposes for requiring landscape screening, there are 2 purposes to require landscape screening that are relevant, or I feel they're relevant. Purpose 1, to integrate the project with the site, in particular relating to the natural topography and existing vegetation. Purpose number 4, to protect the character and value of surrounding neighborhoods. In the packet that was distributed, there are aerial and ground level photos of the 3 homes that will have directly shared property lines with the new lots in their proposed development. The photos are provided in order to display the character and natural aesthetics of the existing properties. As you can see from the photos, the character of the properties is private and wooded. In order to maintain as much as the current aesthetics and value of the existing homes as possible, we hope the commission will consider requiring landscape screening buffer to run along the property lines on the development side along the 3 impacted properties listed as Hutton Estates 5, 6, and 7. In closing, we acknowledge and respect Mr. St. Peter's right to buy and develop the property, and we appreciate the investment in Wyandotte County. But we also hope to protect our long-term investment in Wyandotte County as well. We thank you in advance for the commission's consideration.
Thank you. Are there any questions for this gentleman? Commissioner Serta?
I just want to make sure I understand where your home is located. It's located along Hutton Estates, is correct? Would be located along Hutton Road on the east side of Hutton Road,
Correct.
correct? South of Nelson Lane.
And also in the packet, in one of the last pages, there's going to be an aerial view of the Hutton Estates 5, 6, and 7 that are requesting the landscape screening.
And your property is located in the middle, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm just here. We.
Go ahead and give me your name and address.
My name's Jeff Brungart. I live at Hutton Estates, lot number 7. We all asked Mr. Groneman to speak for us. I just want you to understand, my wife was not able to make it, but I own lot number 7, and I'll pass on to Tracy.
Okay.
Tracy Armentrout, and I'm also lot number 5, so I'm the one with the, I'm the newest resident, but I have the one with the 2 ponds. And
You're at 4113 Hutton Road, is that correct?
yes,
Okay, and all three of you are in opposition with the, or the request that you want the landscape buffer? Okay,
correct. All right, thank you.
thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, could you ask them if they would support that if the landscape buffer was there? Is this-
So the question is, would you, why don't you, is it Groneman?
Yes.
Okay, if you'll come back up. Would you support the request if the buffer were inserted into the approval?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and your neighbors as well, I'm assuming? All right, thank you. I'm sorry, Commissioner Reason?
Just one question. I was reading in your thing. Do you believe that this, without that buffer, this would hurt the value of your home?
I do.
And where are you coming up with those statistics?
Well, I just think that due to the purposes for landscape screening outlined in those city ordinances, as well as the fact that the property lines will be directly adjoining, I believe that the proximity of the house to house is going to be such that it would hurt the value of the homes.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Linda Poole, and I don't have adjoining property. My property is just on the other side of the pond and faces Hutton Road.
You're on the, I'm sorry, you're on the west side of Hutton?
We're at 4211 Hutton Road.
So you're on the west side of Hutton Road?
Yes.
Okay.
No, we're on the east side. Our property backs up to the pond that they have right here in the middle.
Okay.
It'd be
Can somebody point to her property?
here.
Okay.
Well, I just wanted to say that we bought the house 2.5 years ago for the beautiful view. That's the only reason we bought the house, and we paid more for our property than we could. It was a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, and we could have gotten a house like that a lot cheaper somewhere else. We only bought that house because of the beautiful view, and we're sorry that it's going to be having a neighborhood put in behind us. And I'm concerned about all the deer and wildlife that we see come down to that pond and what will happen to any of them. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Anyone else that wants to speak in opposition? Okay, can we go ahead and call the petitioner back? And would you just address the neighborhood concerns about a landscape buffer?
Those are some of our larger lots that back up to their property, so I don't think I'd have a problem doing there's actually existing trees there, so if we leave those or add to or something, I don't see a problem with that. I mean, we're not here to try to make anything that's a blight on the community. I mean, I understand. I live rurally myself, so I understand.
Okay, and just for the record, would you give us your name and address, please?
Gerald St. Peter, 14690 254th Street, Lawrence, Kansas.
All right, thank you. Yes, Rob?
Before he sits down, I guess, given the concern of the last lady that spoke, what is your plan around the pond area before you get to the street? Is that just going to be a grassy area like it is now?
Yes, there's a walking trail that runs basically down the east side of the pond. And then the lower side of the pond is what would be track B, which is, there won't be anything there because it's the lower washout area. And then there's a track C, which continues on down to what would be the southeast corner of the property. So there won't be any houses basically built in a line below the pond. So there's a picnic area that goes just below the pond, and then a walking trail to the east of the pond, nothing to the west of the pond between the property lines.
Okay. And just so you understand, our trail plan would require that to be a hard surface trail, asphalt or concrete.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, if I might ask a couple of other questions that were not necessarily in the staff report. One is on the main street that kind of goes through the subdivision there, where there's the long stretch of it there. Would you be opposed to working with us on final plan to get some kind of traffic calming in there so that doesn't become a raceway? I think it would ultimately help the value of those properties there if they were assured people weren't going to be flying by their homes. And then the last items would be connections to adjacent properties. It is possible for the development to the east of you to develop, although it's in a single ownership right now. Would you be opposed to working with us to, I think you could do it without losing a lot, especially given that you've got the drainage way at the bottom, a connection to the east, and then one to the south that would only be developed if that was similar residential. The property to the south abuts Leavenworth Road, and I believe that might be commercial. I wouldn't want it to connect to the neighborhood if it was commercial, but if it was other housing, getting a connection would be good there for fire safety. Can we work on those things as we go to final plat?
Yeah, like we said, track C would be, I think, where you'd probably connect through, and that would be fine.
Okay.
We'll go with that.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public portion, and we'll hear from staff, which we've already heard from staff, but we'll get some more from staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in addition to the stipulations and the comments in the staff report, I'd like to add 3 additional stipulations. One is to, as we work through final plat, to consider traffic calming on the main street that comes off Nelson Lane. The second would be to provide a connection to a subdivision to the east and a potential connection to the subdivision to the south, provided that the southern property would develop in a similar manner. You know, if it was multifamily or commercial or something like that, we wouldn't do that connection. And then the final one would be to provide landscaping, screening along the proposed lots 26 through 31 in the proposed development that correspond to the properties that were discussed by the first 3 gentlemen. And I think that rather than prescribing what that would be, I think we need to look at the treat area there and work with those 3 property owners to see if it would be easier just to preserve a certain distance of trees there and work with moving the utility easements around, or if they would prefer to have, you know, a fence and then some type of formal landscape on their side. And so if the 3 gentlemen that spoke would come get my card in between the hearings here, and so we can get a time to contact them to work through those issues with them. And also just that we would maintain the current, with regard to the lady that spoke, you know, they're not going to be taking out any trees or anything adjacent to the pond there. That area is all going to remain natural until you cross the pond. I realize there's a large field there. Part of that will be remained, but then there'll be a trail and a sidewalk, a trail on the street, sidewalks on the residential side. So I think it'll still be a nice view. There'll be houses in the back of that view, but I think that will make sure that, you know, we aren't changing anything on, you know, close to the Hutton Road side of the rest of the development. If any of you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, we'll stand for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, we'll need 2 motions, one
Yes.
on the change of zone and then the
Changes-
plat.
Correct. Change of zone motion first, please.
Motion to approve change of zone 3197.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Serta, seconded by Commissioner Neal. Any discussion on change of zone? Okay, seeing none, roll call.
Cho,
Aye.
Conley,
Aye.
Ernst,
Aye.
Yui,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Reasons,
Aye.
Serta.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend approval of change of zone 3197, subject to the staff's revised comments, passes 8 in favor and none opposed.
Okay, now I'll take a motion on the preliminary plat approval.
Motion to approve the preliminary plat subject to staff's additional stipulations.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Serta, seconded by Commissioner Huey. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Cho,
Aye.
Conley, Ernst,
Aye.
Yui,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Reasons,
Aye.
Serta.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to approve the preliminary plat, subject to the revised staff comments and suggestions, passes 8 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you. This will be heard again on September 26th at 7 p.m. in this room. Thank you all for your comments.
Our next change of zone is number 3198, Horacio Perez. Change of zone from R1B Single Family District to AG Agriculture District for an accessory structures and animals at 3605 Bell Crossing Drive. Please include the following items as part of the record for this case: the city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated September 9, 2019, the application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, the notice in the Wyandotte Echo dated July 18, 2019, and the notices to property owners dated July 11 and August 5, 2019. Does any member of the Planning Commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this application?
No.
No.
All those for and against, please come to the front of the room.
Hi, how you doing, everyone? I buy the property because.
First off, give me your name and address for the record, please.
Horacio Perez, and my address 3605 Bell Crossing. And I buy this property because I like to, all the time I got animals, and I never got a problem before. Like, everyone up there has got animals and stuff. And I want to change to agriculture. That one I can keep my animals and do whatever I like to do. And
Okay, we got some questions for you.
yes,
Questions for the petitioner. Commissioner Neal?
I may have missed it here, but what type of animals are we talking about?
I got some horses, goats, and cattle, hens, and
Okay.
stuff like that.
Can you give us some numbers of what you've got,
I got,
what you're working with?
Sorry, I got pigs before, but he told me, and roosters, and I need to remove those, and I already remove it. So,
How many horses do you have?
2 of them.
And how many cattle?
I got 1 cattle and 2 calves, like 3 cows.
And you have some hens?
Yes,
How many of those do you have?
about 20.
How many?
20.
20?
Hens, yeah,
And no pigs, right?
no pigs.
Anything else?
I got a couple goats and
2 goats?
yeah, and like 2 chips.
2 what?
Chips, like sheep or lambs, como borregos.
Lambs?
Sheep,
Chips, yeah.
2 sheeps. Okay, 2 horses, 3 cows, 20 hens, 2 goats, and 2 sheeps. Okay. Any other questions for the petitioner? And I understand you're working with codes enforcement about getting some of the buildings cleaned up out there?
Yeah.
And we don't have any, I don't know that these are recent pictures, but based on the pictures we've got, you still have some work to do out there?
Like, right now, I got some of the building sets already in there, and I wanna build them, but, like, I wanna just got the, like,
for the buildings, he told me I need, fix a little things, but, I wanna see it can pass, cause like, I don't wanna drop it and put a lot of more money and I need to throw away or something like that, you know?
Correct. I understand about upgrading, but you know the cleanup's going to have to happen whether you get approved or disapproved.
Okay, no.
Because
I'm
you have some
cleaning-
cleanup that needs to be done
Yeah,
first.
I'm cleaning, whatever he told me to do, I'm gonna start to doing everything, like.
Well, and codes enforcement says that you're working on it and they're supporting you on your efforts, that you've been in contact with them.
All the time, when I got any problems, I go straight to the city and everything, I'll fix it.
Okay? Other questions? Okay? We're going to open up the public portion of the meeting. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak in favor of the applicant? Yes, ma'am. Give us your name and address, please.
Yes, my name is Lydia Mejia, and I live in 844 Cleveland Avenue. He is my neighbor at Bell Crossing. And yes, he is trying his best, even though he's sick. He does his best, and yes, he keeps his animals in his, where he's supposed to, in his lot and everything. And he's a good neighbor, that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else that wants to speak in favor? Yes, ma'am. Your name and address.
Okay, my name is Elizabeth Flores, and I'm 3539 Bell Crossing Drive. He's actually also my neighbor. And me and my siblings grew up there. Like, we grew up there, so we also had, animals. And we just love the animals, I've never seen him have any problems with, he's actually one of the very hardworking people that I've seen there drive by. So just seeing him there, his animals are always where they're supposed to be and stuff like that, so. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else wants to speak in favor? Yes, sir.
Hello. Thank you for your time tonight. My name is Barry Anderson. I'm Mr. Perez's immediate neighbor to the south, which also these young ladies are my immediate neighbors to the south. I am right in the middle of them. We are all neighbors. We all support one another. I, too, have an open issue at the present time with the code enforcement that is being diligently sought at, being diligently worked upon, so that my issue, as it will come before the City Commission and Planning Commission, will be in a better form. It is in a perhaps nebulous state right now. However, I'm here for Mr. Perez on tonight. I just want to continue to move forward in our neighborly relationship with Mr. Perez. We always look out for one another. Some property owners are down there as time evolves around the clock. There's always somebody on Bell Crossing. Because of the lack of our law enforcement presence, we have to attempt to stop the speeding, stop the illegal dumping, stop the cars that are being stolen and taken down to Bell Crossing and sorted and being put on cinder blocks and being burned. We are the neighbors that have to call the city and remind them to come down and perhaps move snow. Perhaps after we've already trampled the snow down, I guess we're the last street on the list sometimes. And it is a destitute and underserved area. But however, that's not why I'm here. I'm here to support my neighbors who own property.
You're making a lot of other points too, but
Well,
that's okay. That's
but
okay.
It needs to be shared. We do have some open dialogue going with Ms. Bynum, who I don't see here tonight, as well as Ms. Townsend. I've been working with them as well, communicating with them. I'm waiting on a call back from her that was placed a couple of weeks ago. I know she's busy. However, we are embarking upon helping one another more as we join forces together to perhaps root out and video as a matter of record. Let this be on record that there will be videoed vehicles that are speeding up and down Bell Crossing that must stop because of the safety the hazard that speeding.
Sir, I understand all the points that you're
Okay.
making, but I really need you to stick to his case because if
Okay.
you get too far off track, you might hurt his case.
Okay, I'm sorry for that. Please accept my.
That's okay. I just want to make sure you're staying on point.
Okay, the point is, I just want him to continue to be an informative and productive neighbor that he has been demonstrating.
Thank you very much. Sounds like you've got a great neighborhood. Okay, anyone else that wants to speak in favor of, or is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak in opposition to the request? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting. We'll get staff comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a matter of explanation to the Planning Commission, code enforcement and zoning enforcement started working in the Bell Crossing area about a year ago, and there are somewhere under 100 properties that have either significant zoning or code enforcement issues, and so staff is looking at those one by one to see who can do some type of zoning action that fixes their problem and which ones need to do that, which ones that need to just fix their code enforcement issues, and which ones have a combination that is a more difficult resolution that we don't really understand at the moment. This is one of the easier ones where they had 5 acres and they could rezone to agricultural to allow the additional accessory structures. I would note, though, that given the number of animals, in addition to the stipulations in the staff report, the applicant will need to provide us a manure removal plan because that's more horses than, or more animals than I think 5 acres could reasonably maintain given the structures in the area that's not open for animals. Seems like a lot of them might be penned and cooped, so that might not be a big, it's just scooping it out and disposing of it off-site. They will need to obtain building permits for all of the structures on the site. And that likely also means that they will need to provide uniform siding and paint on all the buildings and generally clean up the site and keep it clean per the code enforcement requirements in the future. With those additional 4 stipulations, I'd recommend approval.
Are there questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, we'll stand for a motion.
Move to approve, subject to the stipulations in the staff report,
Including the additional,
including the additional stipulations.
thank you. Motion to approve by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Huey. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Cho?
Aye.
Conley?
Aye.
Ernst?
Aye.
Huey?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Reasons?
Aye.
Serta.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend approval of change of zone 3198, subject to the staff's revised comments, passes 8 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you. This will be heard once again on September 26th at 7 p.m. in this room. Okay? You'll need to come back one more time. If you want to meet with staff, he'll help you out. Ms. Parker, go ahead and call the next case.
Our next change of zone is number 3202, F. Peter Kovac. Change of zone from R1 Single Family District to AG Agriculture District to raise cattle at 4251 North 60th Street. Please include the following items as part of the record for this case: the city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated September 9, 2019, the application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, the notice in the Wyandotte Echo dated August 15, 2019, and the notices to property owners dated August 14, 2019. Does any member of the commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
All those for and against, please come to the front of the room.
Good evening. Go ahead and give us your name and address and tell us about your project.
Pete Kovac, 4023 North 59th Street. What was the second part? I'm deaf, sir.
Tell us about what you want to do here.
The 35 acres has been agriculture since I was born and raised in that area, from when it was the county. And I frankly thought it was ag, and I went to the assessors about every year, and I had to restate my ag case, and I was always taxed as an agricultural property. And I just found out this past summer that it's zoned R1. And I was really surprised at that. So rather than having to go back and make sure that, I still qualify, the land is going to continue to be pasture ground, maybe a small garden, that sort of thing. And I would just like to permanently get it to be agricultural. My neighbors to the north are, and some of the neighbors to my west are already zoned ag, and it just seems totally logical. Because it's the rolling Missouri River Bluff country, 200 feet elevation drop, it will never be developed, and it's been rural forever, and I like to keep it that way. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, and you have cattle on that property?
I do have cattle from time to time. When I ranch cattle in Colorado as well, and I bring in what they call yearlings, which are calves. And the most I've ever had on that ground was 11. And we bring them on in the spring, let them eat the grass, and take them off in the fall. So.
Okay. Any questions for the petitioner?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So in the Conservation Department comments, it said keep the cattle out of the trees. Is there enough land there for the 11 of the yearlings? I know they're not a full beef cow, so they don't take a whole 2 acres, but they're more like a horse. They probably need more like an acre apiece. Is that about right?
In this part of the world, with the grass we have, you could probably do one calf per acre and a half, according to the USDA.
Right.
But I would never do that. We do have cross fencing for pasture management, so nothing is overgrazed. And I have, over the years, I have planted true native prairie grasses on the property as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry, your question threw me off when you said to keep the cows out of the trees. I thought, well, what are they doing climbing those trees in the first place? But I'm with you now. Okay, we're going to go open up the public portion of the meeting. Is there anyone who wants to speak in favor of or in opposition to this project? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting. We'll get staff comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just note that the 12 cattle mentioned in the staff report would be yearlings, so they wouldn't be full beef cattle, and that they would continue to use cross fencing and the grazing management plan. With that extra note, recommend approval.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll stand for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion approved by Commissioner Huey, seconded by Commissioner Miller. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Joe?
Aye.
Conley?
Aye.
Ernst?
Aye.
Huey?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Reasons?
Aye.
Serta.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend approval of change of zone application 3202, subject to the staff's revised comments, passes 8 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you. This will be heard once again September 26th, 7 p.m. in this room. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next change of zone is number 3203. Change of zone from R1 Single Family District to R2B Two Family District for continuation of a duplex at 1028 Sandusky Avenue. Please include the following items as part of the record for this case: the city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated September 9, 2019, the application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, the notice in the Wyandotte Echo dated August 15, 2019, and the notices to property owners dated August 14, 2019. Does any member of the commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
All those for and against, please come to the front of the room.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. How are you? My name is Sami Mohammed Rabi. I'm the applicant for the property 1028 Sandusky Avenue. Pretty much, we purchased the property back in a sales tax auction here in Wyandotte County in later 2009. We were unaware that the property was not a 2-unit building, as we have purchased the property as is. We we're trying to apply for a rental license, as my mother found out from the city inspector, that they said the property is a single unit. Property that was purchased, I do all the renovation, and the property was always a two-story. The property did come with 2 meters, 2 gas, 2 electrical boxes. Believe I forgot, the main inspector that comes in and checks the whole house, he was aware of it from the past. The pictures that I've gone ahead and gave Ms. Kim, which represents my case, I provided pictures of inside the property. As you can see, the property has always been, as we call it, original plaster walls. We haven't done anything but just to upgrade the flooring, paint, and just to keep the property into a better condition. So we are looking to get that resolved so we won't have any further issues with you guys. Been part of your county for quite a long time. We do conduct a lot of business here. So if there's any issues, I'm more glad to ask me, I would be answering.
Okay, questions for the petitioner? Okay, seeing none, we'll open up the public portion of the meeting. Is there anyone who wants to speak in favor of or in opposition to this request? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting. We'll get staff comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Given the design and structure of this house, unless it's had a front porch removed at some point, that would have been like a full width of the house front porch and it just had the 2 doors on that side. I really haven't ever seen one built like this, and it's kind of different than everything else in the area. So at some point it was likely converted, even though it's been long enough that, you know, it appears to have been built that way originally. If the applicant's willing to make a couple of the improvements listed in the staff report related to improving the landscape, fixing the siding that's bowing, and adding some shutters, other aesthetic features on the home, and the other requirements listed in the staff report, we'd recommend approval given there's no neighborhood opposition.
Rob, is there any plan for the backyard, the back lot?
He's going to do some paving improvement back there. It just needs to be less than 30% of the rear yard.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll stand for a motion.
Motion to approve, subject to staff stipulations.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Curtis, seconded by Commissioner Neal. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Cho?
Aye.
Conley?
Aye.
Ernst?
Aye.
Yui?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Reasons?
Aye.
Serta.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend approval of change of zone application 3203, subject to the staff's comments and suggestions, passes 8 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you. This will be heard again September 26th at 7 p.m. in this room.
Thank you, sir.
Our next change of zone is number 3204, Elliott Arnold with Beechwood Holdings LLC. Changes zone from R1B Single Family District to R2B Two Family District for a multifamily residential development at 3002, 3004, and 3014 West 43rd Street and 4225 Mission Road. Please include the following items as part of the record for this case: the city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated September 9, 2019, the application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, the notice in the Wyandotte Echo dated August 15, 2019, and the notices to property owners dated August 14, 2019. Does any member of the commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
All those for and against, please come to the front of the room.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Elliott Arnold with Beechwood Holdings, 60 Kansas Avenue, Kansas City, Kansas. Before you tonight is a plan for us to restore the existing structure and convert it to a duplex. So the existing structure on the lot, as you can see there, Obviously, R1 residential, we would like to convert that to a two-unit duplex. And we have submitted landscaping plans, we've submitted plans for our carport, we've submitted plans for the proper code driveway, so a solid-scape driveway, and that's pretty much the gist of the proposal.
Okay, questions for the petitioner? What's the space being used for now? Or
Well,
prior to?
Historically, it's been a church. So for the past 10 years, it was a church. It's vacant now. We had to replace the roof because there was several roof leaks that was causing damage to some of the structures. So that's the only renovation we've made, but it's currently unoccupied.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Serta.
I just want to, this probably might be more properly directed to staff, but I just want to clarify with the applicant. It appears that you own 5 parcels there around the corner.
That's correct,
Multiple
yes.
addresses referenced. So are you intending that the rezoning would apply to all of those parcels? Yes, that's our plan presently. For the remaining 4 parcels, we plan to do the same R2 construction, although no plans have been submitted or reviewed to the city as of yet. But at some indeterminate point in the future, you plan to build other duplexes on that corner? Yes, that's what I wanted to clarify. All right, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll open up the public portion of the meeting. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak in favor of this request? In opposition? Sir, come to the microphone, give us your name and address.
Good evening. My name is John W. O'Reilly. I own the properties, I think literally across the street from this gentleman at 2941 43, 2937 39, 2933 and 35, and 2925 and 27, as well as the big open lot on the corner. The church that he's referring to, having it changed into a duplex for whether he lives on one side or rents out both sides, I think there's no problem with that at all. There's a big lot there for parking purposes. I've been living in a neighborhood for half my life, and I've seen the church on a Sunday packed with cars, and I'm not worried about that at all. My concern, though, is that on the other lots, that corner of 43rd Avenue and Mission is really a busy, busy corner. There's been a lot of wrecks at that corner over the years, and I think you're going to add a lot to the traffic flow at that one little area. Again, with the church area, I have no problem with that. As he expands, there will be a problem with that, at least in my opinion. Thank you.
All right, questions for this gentleman? Okay. Anyone else who wants to speak in opposition? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public portion of the meeting. We'll get, I'm sorry, you want to go ahead and do you want to address your neighbor's concern with traffic or anything?
Yeah, it's a very valid concern. We've been working with city planning quite extensively on various designs to abate the traffic for any future development on that corner. It's been a known quantity with the master plan, with the Rosedale master plan, with the broader city. Any designs that we're going to put forth as part of that second track will
Go ahead and address those comments.
Sorry.
to me. That's
So
all.
any designs or development that'll be put forth as part of that second tract that we haven't even started planning will definitely take traffic into consideration. I mean, it's a primary factor.
Okay, is there any, do you have a time frame for that second track?
I would say minimum of 18 months.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, before he
Yes.
leaves the microphone, given those traffic concerns, would you mind if we went through a final plan review so everybody, the public, could see what we're doing with the traffic and the different duplexes in the future? It just means you have to draw out the lots and the driveways and bring that forward.
Yeah, and we spoke briefly about that in terms of the flow, the traffic flow in and then the traffic flow out, and the one-way requirements. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public portion of the meeting. We'll get staff comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would recommend approval, subject to the stipulations in the staff report with the additional stipulation that they provide a final plan review to this body that shows the lot layouts and traffic circulation.
Okay. Questions for staff?
I have one.
Commissioner Serta.
Rob, looking at the existing layout of the parcels, you're anticipating there'd have to be a replat as part of the final plan?
I think there will be, but just in case there isn't, we'd still see the final plan.
I would just, I mean, I think there's probably two issues that will have to be addressed. I mean, the first is the shape of that parcel on which the structure sits. It's kind of an odd L-shaped parcel that extends all the way down to 43rd. And it would seem to me to make effective use of that, development as anticipated, you probably need to subdivide that into a smaller lot. The other issue, I think, to the prior gentleman's concern, again, thinking about the design requirements in the Rosedale Master Plan, I think circulation and ingress egress in and out of those lots is going to be significant enough. I don't know if that would justify rear driveways or whatever the case is, but I certainly appreciate the issues that he was discussing. I mean, it's kind of a snub corner there on that turn. That signal there at 43rd and Mission Road does have a green signal, which is convenient, but I think tends to accelerate traffic coming around that corner a little bit, heading west toward northbound Mission Road. So I think all of those issues are, not to be taken very lightly. I'm just, again, not making any specific comment with regard to the change of zone, but with future plan, I think it would be.
And the reason I said final
some
plan is because you could, although I agree that it probably needs to be replatted, you could do 3 of the lots without that. And so I wouldn't want any of them to be done because that could impact how you do the futures with that. So we need to see all of them together.
So effectively, that stipulation would bind the future development of those as well.
Right.
Right, because they're subject to this rezoning.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question per that. If in the future we wanted to subdivide and hypothetically speaking, if we wanted to subdivide and rezone the other 4 parcels as like mixed-use commercial, not R2, would that be counter to what you've set forth herein? I mean, would that be counter to the stipulation that you're currently requiring?
Not at all. It'd be the exact same set of considerations, just for a different kind of use.
Okay.
And I think in that circumstance, correct me if I'm wrong, but it would really be mandatory if that was the case.
Yeah, it would be, and it would be another public process. And so, to change one rezoning, you have to go through another rezoning process, and that's how you would do that. And that would be effectively how you would do that. And we would look at the same types of issues on a probably more detailed and significant level, given the extra traffic they could generate.
Okay.
Other questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll stand for a motion.
With that added stipulation, I would make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Serta, seconded by Commissioner Miller. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Joe?
Aye.
Conley?
Aye.
Ernst?
Aye.
Yui?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Reasons?
Aye.
Serta.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend approval of change of zone application 3204, subject to the staff's revised comments, passes 8 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you. This will be heard once again September 26th at 7 p.m. in this room.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes the change of zone applications, and we'll now move on to the special use permits. The first one is SP 2019-50, Lloyd Clay, special use permit for the temporary use of land to park salt plow trucks when not in use at 7852 Leavenworth Road. Please include the following items as part of the record for this case: the city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated September 9, 2019, the application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, the notice in the Wyandotte Echo dated April 18, 2019, and the notices to property owners dated April 15, May 7, June 6, June 24, and August 20th, 2019. This time, does any member of the commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this application?
No.
All those for and against, please come to the front of the room.
Good evening.
Thomas Steibel, 509 Armstrong, Kansas City, Kansas, 66101, representing the applicant Lloyd Clay.
Also here is Curtis Clay. Curtis Clay is the actual owner of these vehicles that he wants to be able to park on his dad's property. Allowance of the special use permit would actually provide some income to his father, because he would be paying rent to his father for being able to park the vehicles on the property. We've looked at the application, the staff's recommendation that they would approve this if the parking was on a hard surface. We understand that the compliance issues from the variance will need to be addressed in order to carry this out. I don't want to take more time because we did a pretty thorough representation to you in the writing and in the reports that we submitted. We'll address any questions that you might have.
Okay, questions for the petitioner? Commissioner Serta?
There's a comment in the staff report, in the applicant's response, question number 11 on page 5, where staff says that vehicles must be parked on an improved hard surface, and the response is that they would be parked on gravel. Has that issue been resolved?
My understanding is that the staff is recommending that it need to be on a hard surface. You know, the ordinance on parking in a residential district does allow it to be 4 inches of gravel, and that's what we had anticipated when we submitted the application. But even if we do comply with the issue and reduce the parking area, the concrete parking area, to 1,000 square feet, there would be ample room there to park 4 vehicles.
Okay. So then the parking would be restricted to the existing concrete pads as modified to comply with the code requirements?
That's the staff's recommendation, yes, sir.
Okay.
Other questions? Seeing none, we'll open the public portion of the meeting. Anyone want to speak in favor of or in opposition to this request? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion. We'll get staff comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would also like to include the previous Board of Zoning Appeals hearing from earlier this evening in our records, because there's a lot of other explanation that you all heard related to this case at that meeting. Related to the gravel, so there are some historically gravelled areas on this site that predate the code that says you got to do hard surface. Those obviously can remain, but for the commercial operation, those trucks should be parked on the hard surface as modified, given the Board of Zoning Appeals direction. So would recommend approval subject to compliance with the result of the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting, which would be that the lean-to portion of the building that exceeded the 1,000 square feet would be removed, and a small portion of the hard surface parking be removed so that it complies with the 1,000 square feet. With those stipulations, we'd recommend approval.
Questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll stand for a motion.
Motion to approve under staff stipulation. Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Reasons with the additional staff recommendations? Okay, and seconded by Commissioner Miller. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Cho.
Aye.
Conley.
Aye.
Ernst.
Aye.
Ewing.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Reasons.
Aye.
Serta.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend approval of SP 2019-50, subject to the staff's revised comments, passes 8 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you. This will be heard once again September 26th at 7 p.m. in this room.
Thank you.
Our next special use permit is SP 2019-82, MSS Freight Services LLC. Special use permit for the temporary use of land for an inspection and light maintenance facility at 451 South 14th Street. Please include the following items as part of the record for this case. The city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question. The staff report and attachments dated September 9, 2019. The application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, the notice in the Wyandotte Echo dated July 18, 2019, and the notices to property owners dated July 11 and August 5, 2019. Does any member of the commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
All those for and against, please come to the front of the room.
G'day, Will Anderson, BHC Roads, 712 State Avenue, Kansas City, Kansas, representing MS Freight Services LLC. This is a special use permit. MSS Freight Service currently works out of Olathe. They're doing a lot of their work up here. The site itself is being used as a light maintenance, no oil changes. Just a point of interest, we did a survey of this piece of land back in 2009, and you couldn't move for cars that were dumped there. As you can see now, the site itself is incredibly clean, and it's been done. We've met with staff, met all the requirements. There's a couple that are still basically in there. The only one is that they've allowed us not to have to put landscaping trees on the front street, as they'd sort of look out of place. But apart from that, the site is what it is. We're open to questions if you have any.
Thank you. Questions for the petitioner? Seeing none, we'll open up the public portion of the meeting. Anyone who wants to speak in favor of or in opposition to the request? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion. We'll get staff comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We recommend approval, subject to the stipulations in the staff report.
Questions for staff? Seeing none, stand for a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion approved by Commissioner Curtis, seconded by Commissioner Miller. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Cho.
Aye.
Conley.
Aye.
Ernst.
Aye.
Huey.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Reasons.
Aye.
Serta.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend approval of SP 2019-82, subject to the staff's comments and suggestions, passes 8 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you. Those appeared once again September 26th, 7 p.m. in this room.
Our next special use permit is SP 2019-87, Nicole Henson. Special use permit for a car dealership with automotive repair, auto detailing, and auto stereo installation at 1830 Quindaro Boulevard. Please include the following items as part of the record for this case: the city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated September 9, 2019, the application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, the notice in the Wyandotte Echo dated July 18, 2019, and the notices to property owners dated July 11 and August 5, 2019. Does any member of the commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
All those for and against, please come to the front of the room.
Hi, I'm Nicole Henson at 1830 Quindaro, and I am here proposing the car dealership and mechanic shop and detailing and audio installation.
Okay. Do you have anything else you want to add about your project, what you're doing there, what you will be doing there?
Well, we'll mainly detail cars, and we'll also apply. It's a small lot, so we can't have too big of a dealership, but we would like to sell some cars, maybe no more than 10. And we're actually not going to really do any mechanic work for the public. We'll primarily work on the cars that we'll sell. And then our manager for detailing also is really popular with audio installation. So we're going to offer that service because most people know that he's there. And that's basically it.
Okay. Any questions for the petitioner? Commissioner Connolly?
So how many cars do you think you'd be storing on the lot?
Maybe like 10.
Okay. Now, I guess on the audio, on the detailing, is there a place for the, I guess, the chemicals? Y'all have a trough or anything for the chemicals that's going to be used?
Well, they'll definitely be EPA friendly. So the detergents, the detailing actually take place outside. And so we do have a sealant in the asphalt so that it doesn't like affect the environment. So we've already been approved for our carport, so the detailing will mainly take place outside.
Well, thank you.
Welcome.
Other questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll open up the public portion of the meeting. Anyone wants to speak in favor of or in opposition to the request? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion. We'll get staff comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would note that all of the cars on the site would need to be in proper parking places, striped per city code. In addition, there would need to be striped spaces for customers. With that note, I would recommend approval and thank Ms. Henson for her hard work on the building already. It looks really nice.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll stand for a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Neal, seconded by Commissioner Serta. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Cho?
Aye.
Conley?
Aye.
Ernst?
Aye.
Yui?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Reasons?
Aye.
Serta.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend approval of SP 2019-87, subject to the staff's comments and suggestions, passes 8 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you. This appeared once again September 26th in this room at 7 p.m.
Do I have to be here for that?
I think it's advisable that you are.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, see you
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that now takes us to our last item on the agenda. Plan review application PR 2019-21, David Contag with DLR Group. Preliminary and final plan review for an addition and renovation to the Turner Middle School at 1312 South 55th Street. Please include the following items as part of the record for this case: the city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated September 9, 2019, the application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, and the notices to property owners dated August 14, 2019. Does any member of the commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
All those for and against, please come to the front of the room.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Commissioner and Commissioners. We're pleased to be here tonight to present this. I am David Contag, 7290 West 133rd Street, Overland Park, Kansas, with DLR Group. We are appearing here on behalf of USD 202. Joining us tonight, Mr. Doug Powers, Assistant Superintendent, and also we have Mick Slutter, our civil engineer with RIC, and Ian Kilpatrick and Maddie Bestick with DLR Group. We can discuss the architecture part if there are any questions. Essentially, this project has been around for a long, or the middle school has been around for a long time, and a high school before that. It consists of about 49,000 square feet of a building addition, all classrooms. The existing classroom portion of the building will be demolished and raised with new infill of the 49,000 square feet. The Performing Arts Center will remain in place with some improvements. The remaining portions of the interior of the gym and and the PAC will have some renovation to it as well. I believe that is all of the major improvements. As far as, well, I do have some other things on the site. We've been working with staff, and on behalf of the district, we are in agreement with the staff comments. We are making some improvements for the circulation. We'll have the same amount of students or less going forward. Hopefully, there'll be some future growth at the school. The primary improvements on site will be to have all of the vehicular traffic come in on the north entrance and go all the way to the back of the site and then come back up through the, do we have a site plan, Byron? Or that might be more helpful. And maybe too much detail, you can stop me if it's too much. But we'll have the parent drop off and pick up in front of the school, but we believe by bringing all of the cars to the back of the site and bringing them to the front will greatly alleviate if there are any concerns with traffic, which there have not been in the past, and we do not foresee any in the future. The other thing is we are proposing, so this is a partial of that. As you're coming in the north entrance, headed west, and then going all the way to the rear of the site, coming back up and dropping in that loop that we're developing in the front. You can see all the new landscaping. The buses will remain or still come in from the south entrance off of Metropolitan up into the site from the south and loop in a newly developed bus loop behind the Performing Arts complex, which we think will help improve the current traffic. So with that, we've got our team here. Mr. Powers, if there are any questions that you have for us, we'll stand for questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions for the petitioner? I'm just personally happy to hear about your comments regarding the drop-off line at the start of the school. It seems like my neighborhood Facebook page, the only complaint they have is about the neighborhood drop-off, and it seems to be considerable out at certain schools. So it's nice to see that given some consideration, given the amount of discomfort a lot of people feel by getting old in the school drop-off and pickup lines. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, seeing no questions, we'll open up the public, I'm sorry, Commissioner Ernst.
I have one question.
Great.
Since you've already torn down the old building, do you have a plan B if we don't approve this?
Oh, so we're talking leverage here?
You always come up with the good questions. No, the annex is basically was approved through a building permit process and was outdated, antiquated, and not usable, didn't fit in with the new 21st century learning that we're going to bring to the project.
That I am familiar with. I think this is a very good plan, very good design, and will alleviate some of the problems you do have.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the petitioner? We'll open up this public portion of the meeting. Anyone want to speak in favor of or opposition to the request? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion. We'll get staff comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've worked very closely with the school district and their designers to make sure they have an approvable project so that we don't run into those issues. And with that, I'd recommend approval subject to the stipulations in the staff report.
What do you want to go ahead and grill the staff while we're here? No? Okay. Stand for a motion.
Move to approve, subject to the stipulations in the staff report.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Huey. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Joe?
Aye.
Conley?
Aye.
Ernst?
Aye.
Huey?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Reasons.
Aye.
Serta.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend approval of PR 2019-21, subject to the staff's comments and suggestions, passes 8 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you. This will be heard again September 26th at 7 PM in this room, and good luck. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
before we adjourn the meeting, I apologize. Dr. Serta, I failed to have recognized your son.
You're
And-
stealing my thunder, Janet. You're stealing my thunder. I was going to recognize Mr. Christian Serta at the back of the room, who is here on behalf of the Boy Scouts fulfilling a citizenship request. Is that correct? We thank you for being here and for putting up with all of the shenanigans that go on here sometimes. And you're one of the few people in the room that did not have to be here tonight, so we thank you for doing so. So thank you for doing that. Is there anything else, Janet?
No, I apologize. I didn't know.
That's okay. No, that's okay. No apologies necessary. Thank you. This will conclude the City Planning Commission meeting. Thank you all for your attendance.
Daniel, he looks